Top 6 Show, the original multi-club fan channel. Make sure you're following us now on Spotify and Apple Podcast. The link is in the description below. Welcome back to the Top 6 Show. Lots of big stories to discuss, to debate, to get into, whether it's Chelsea buying a 40% share in another football club, the Saudi investment in Chelsea's squad we'll be touching on as well. Mason Mount to Man United, personal terms now disclosed. The agreement looks very, very close indeed. We're, of course, delving into the Declan Rice saga. We know Arsenal will lead in the race. Their third bid, which is reportedly going to be 100+ million. City have bid for the player today. Man United have put an undisclosed bid in for the player. We're looking at that. Who do you think is going to land him? Newcastle, of course, they've done an agreement now, a full agreement with AC Milan for Tonali. Nobody saw that one coming. We're touching on Liverpool as well in their bid for Tchouameni. We've got a brilliant panel for you tonight, but viewers, make sure like buttons are hit. Make sure you are subscribing. But without any further ado, how is everyone? Everyone well? Everyone good? Everyone enjoying the transfer window so far?
It's fun.
Yep.
It's fun.
I don't know about enjoying, but yeah, man, we're here. I mean, we're live and direct, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's lots to delve into. We're going to touch on all the different teams. I did want to start with Man United and Mason Mount to get people's view on this, because the news has come in that Man United and Chelsea have found middle ground now on this deal. Mount has agreed a massive 5-year contract worth £185,000 a week base. It could go up to as high as 250, 300 with bonuses. But that deal looks like it's about to get over the line for about 60 million. They're talking 50 to 55 base with 5 to 10 million rising in terms of fees. Talk to me, Bhavs. Good business for Man United, or are they paying slightly over the odds for him?
Listen, I'm not sure if he's the profile you should be prioritizing. I think he'd, help your midfield out, but I don't know how that would work in terms of Casemiro, Bruno, Mount midfield. If that's what Ten Hag wants, maybe he sees something that I don't right now. But I think there's other priorities that you should have maybe put forwards first before signing an attacking midfielder. But of course, I'm not United manager. I think the profile could work under Ten Hag. He's similar to what he used to have in Ajax in terms of runners that make runs in behind. He's a clever little player. And in terms of wages, you're going to have to pay that because he's English and you pay tax on top of that. And he's, a Champions League winner. He's played for Chelsea for a few years. He's an established England player. You have to pay the level of money. Is it worthwhile? I'm not too sure. But look, if it bangs and it works out, it'll be worth the money. But United, compared to your previous years where you've paid Sancho 350k a week, and I think, there's other players like that on similar wages, I think it's decent enough.
Yeah, I went for someone else to jump in. Anyone?
I was going to say, I thought it was late.
I'm scared to say something about Mason Mount. Listen, I saw your tweet, Terry, yesterday about Mason Mount and lighting up the Premier League. And I have this feeling that some of the fans just big up a player before he actually joins and saying start picking up on small things, which is some of the Liverpool fans did it with Nunes when every time he does something, they calculated chaos. Some of the Man United fans did it with Anthony, saying, look, did you see what he did? Yes, he improved in the beginning of this, at the end of the season, and he provided some numbers. And I'm seeing it now with Arsenal fans saying they're really preparing us to see, we told you so. But Mason Mount for 60 million, it's a risk that Man United is taking. I don't know if it's for the English quota or the homegrown players or what, but for 60 million, I'm not sure if this is the deal that Man United wants now, if this is what Man United wants to move forward now, if this is your first signing that will improve the squad now. Maybe Mason Mount should have come later at Man United after you improved your midfield. You got the player that you wanted in the midfield, the replacement for Eriksen. Mason Mount improves a phase at Man United, the counter-attacks, maybe moving between the lines. But is he the controller in the midfield? And as Bhavs said, maybe Ten Hag has something else where he moves Bruno next to Casemiro and play Mason Mount closer to the forward. Like when he used to do at Chelsea in that season when he scored 10 goals. He played really close to the 18 of the opposition. But I don't see this is the signing that Man United needs at the moment. I thought you need someone like a Caicedo, even someone like a Brozovic, someone like a Barella that might control the pitch a little bit more. This is my take on Mason Mount. It might work, it might not, but I think it's a risk. And I think it's a lot of money.
I understand what you're saying. Look, this notion that you sign your biggest priority first, it doesn't always pan out like that. Looks like Arsenal are getting Kai Havertz over the line before Declan Rice, and Declan Rice is clearly the big fish. Man United have also bid today for Declan Rice. So we are clearly looking at another profile as well. I'm not too concerned about the order in which the players come in. But I think with Mason Mount, subjectively, when I think about how I feel about him, I think like a lot of Arsenal fans with Kai Havertz, I'm not blown away by it. However, I trust my manager, and I'm willing to put my own personal feelings aside. Look at the fact that my manager tried to sign him in the past when he was at Ajax, rates him, sees something within him. I remember everybody saying it was a massive risk spending £40 million on Lissandro Martinez last year. He's a hobbit. He's too small. The profile won't work in the Premier League. And within a month, every single person who said that looked foolish. And I feel for me, like I trust my manager. I think the same with Arsenal fans when I've said it about Kai Havertz to prove I'm not biased when I say this. The fact that every single major sign-in, barring Fabio Vieira, who's 1 year in, every signing over £20 million that Arteta has made has been brilliant. And most have been laughed at by rival fans. So I just look at this and think, I trust my manager. I'm willing to be objective. And I've just got a sneaky feeling, a gut feeling that Mason Mount's going to do well. But where I do agree with you, Mo, we have to buy another type of midfielder, which is why the club is looking at Declan Rice as an example. And I believe there'll be other targets outside of Declan Rice. I don't think we're going to be successful in that. We'll get onto Rice later, to be fair. I don't think we're going to be successful. But I'm glad we're bidding, and it shows there's money there, and it shows that we also want that profile. So it makes me more relaxed about Mount, if that makes sense.
Anyone
I think it all
else?
just depends.
Yeah, go on, bro.
Sorry, go on.
No, go on.
I was going to say, I think it just all depends on your money situation, because at the moment, where you say that you've got funds available, I guess no one really knows, apart from Manchester United, how much funds are actually available. So as Mo was saying, yes, he might be a player, potentially come in, do some type of job for Manchester United. Ten Hag sees something in him, that's great. But if this isn't a player that you realistically needed at this current moment in time, I don't know if that's the area of the pitch that you needed to sort out so quickly, and Mason Mount was the guy that you needed to sort it out with. You could have probably have sorted out all the other areas, whether that was centre-back, Kim Min-jae, obviously potentially going Bayern Munich now. Wasn't that a person that you was looking at? The goalkeeping situation. I don't know if I felt like you had other areas that you could have sorted out. And even if you missed out on Mount, let's be honest, there's probably other better players out there, better players for value as well, that you could have potentially have gotten. Mount was one of those guys where I can only think of what Mo said about the homegrown thing. Maybe that was in the thinking behind it, as well as obviously the type of player that he is. But I guess it just depends on how much money you guys have to spend, because at the moment, it doesn't look like you have a lot, but you've got some. But some could be 2-3 players. Is that how many players you need to go into the season to continue challenging? I don't know.
How I look at it from a Chelsea point of view, like with Mason, I was happy keeping him in the squad because I think he's actually a good player. He's just not been on good form, and I do think he's going to do well at United. I think we can only judge him this transfer at the end of the window, depending on what else they do in terms of actually bringing in a different type of midfielder, maybe 2 more, I would say. Because Mason needs quality around him. He's not that guy to like take them to the next level. But one thing I'll say as well, Mo, in terms of the timing, with Mason, we've known for a while that he's not going to sign a new contract. So Chelsea have been open to selling him. And ideally, we want to get him off the books before the deadline, because obviously he's straight from the academy. So that's straight profit on the books for FFP. So I think Man United have looked at it. They've seen an opportunity there to just go in because Ten Hag wants him anyway. So there's no reason to delay it and still sort out the rest of your business later on. So I don't see anything wrong with them sorting it out ASAP. And to be honest, it helps us as well because we get that money and
You're happy though.
as well. So if you want him tomorrow, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think with Mason Mount as well, I think it's a weird one. If he comes in and does well, no one's complaining. If he comes in and they add players and you still get De Jong, who was rumoured, as an example, who was rumoured to be coming last summer, then no one's going to be saying anything. And I think if I look at it from a Liverpool perspective, twiddling our fingers, waiting for more midfielders to come in. If they go and get one of their players in, they're getting them in really, really early. We've got to remember what the window opened, a week ago, if not that. It's still really, really early. So they need to just bring in as many players as they can. And Mason Mount, someone that can play on the left, can play in midfield, is an option as a number 10. And he's homegrown. Currently, who did they have? Martial's leaving. They have Garnacho, Anthony, Jadon Sancho doesn't look like he's going to get a sniff. When you look at their depth in kind of those wide regions, it's not that strong. So it might be the one. It might be actually the signing actually works for them.
Can I add something to what Jerry's saying? Jerry's saying something really good, and I'm gonna add to what Jerry's saying, that Mason Mount, I don't see him at the current moment in this Man United team making a position his. If the starting lineup, if Manchester United start tomorrow, will Mason Mount make a position his, like Marcus Rashford making a position his? Anthony made that position his, Casemiro as well. And maybe I'm old school, but for 60 million pounds, yes, add the English tax and all the image rights and all the stuff, I'm expecting a player to go in a team and not just be a squad player to fill in areas when needed. I'm expecting a player to go to Man United like what Casemiro did, and Lisandro Martinez and Anthony. This is my position. You come in, you compete with me.
Mo, but I think he may, and this is the thing. You can't see it because you're not Ten Hag. I mean, it's with all the respect.
Of course, I'm not Ten Hag. Of course.
You're not Ten Hag. You're not a FIFA qualified coach. He obviously has a plan, and the fact that this is why I trust my manager. So I'm inclined to trust him and look at the situation and say, well, he's pushing for him. It's not my preference. I think too often now fans are stuck in this, but it's not what I want. And what I want matters more than being objective for a moment. I do get the challenge, though. There's some super chats here. First one says, I'm on to you, Terry, mate. I'm here to ask the real questions. Kay put that message in 10 minutes ago. Since then, he's not asked any other questions. So I'd like to know what the real questions are there, my friend. Very, very intrigued to know. Thank you, El Captain, for the super chat. You didn't say anything, but thank you. Anything that's not related to Man United right now, we'll save till later. Okay, so Matthew will save yours. It's about what Ten Hag believes he needs to push United forward. It shouldn't be about just any player. And yeah, I think most people would agree with that. I do think the English quote is part of it, though, because we are looking to get rid of 3 or 4 of our English players from the squad this summer. So Maguire, McTominay are 2 of them as an example. So if they leave, you do need to replenish that because there has to be, 8 homegrown players in your squad. So there could be an element of that thinking as well in that deal. But look, me personally, I'm kind of happy with it. I'm not going to lie. I'm getting happy as things go on, as long as, though, JJ, you said it bang on, mate, as long as we add more to it. And if he's coming in... So go on, mate.
Tell you what, he makes more sense than Havertz. I'll give you that, Mason. It makes a lot more sense than Havertz.
You think?
Why is that so personal?
I'm not getting personal. I'm just... That's my opinion. I think
What's the Havertz agenda, bro? He's not your club anymore.
Don, why are you saying that? Kai Havertz, every coach that came to Chelsea in the last 3 years started Havertz. I'm going to have the same energy. 65 million for Arsenal. I'm expecting Havertz to go in and play good football, provide something extra to this Arsenal team. Mason Mount the same. So, but why you're saying that Mason Mount is a better player than Kai Havertz, while coaches played Kai Havertz more than Mason Mount?
I disagree with that because Mason was played a lot under Frank. He was played a lot under Tuchel. Even Gareth Southgate was starting this guy, every single game, like in major tournaments as well as like the friendlies and that. But when you look at Mason's time in the first team in comparison to Havertz, Mason's shown us a lot more than what Havertz has. Like this guy's a 2-time player of the season for Chelsea. He put up GNA, playing on the right, playing on the left, playing in midfield as well. So there's a lot of tangible evidence to show that Mason can actually play in that midfield role because we've seen him come through at Vitesse. Even Derby, he was good in that 8 role. So there's a lot more evidence to say this makes more sense to play in that role that Ten Hag's bringing him into. Whereas Havertz, we haven't seen him succeed in that left centre mid role. That's why I think it'll be the better deal, and it makes more sense with Mason Mount and Havertz if we compare the two.
Left centre mid, is that what we're expecting Kai Havertz to play?
That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying.
No, he won't play.
I'm only going off of what they're saying, but that's how I would look at it from a United point of view.
Bhavs, how do you feel about the Kai Havertz deal? Now it's done, 65 million. I've read 200 or 250,000 pound a week. How do you feel about it personally, mate?
I'm actually more excited about the unknown than anything. Like in terms of the player himself, I'll be honest, at Chelsea he was underwhelming at times, but I also believe he's been misprofiled. I think people think he's more of a goal scorer. I don't think he's coming into Arsenal to just score goals. I think what Mikel Arteta probably sees is his link-up play in between the lines, that little comfortable, ability to link up the play in the area. I think if anything, the profile would look at to compare him to is maybe you look at Julian Alvarez at Man City, where he's a striker, but he plays alongside the striker. You know, he plays behind Haaland at times, or he'll play as a secondary striker. He's more of a link-up player than anything. Alvarez is a better goal scorer, obviously, though. So I'm very excited to see what Arteta has planned. There will be a fundamental change that I don't think fans know yet. But every single window under Arteta, there's been this change that no one kind of expected, and I think Havertz will be part of that. There's no way that he's chased him, paid £60+ million, and put him as one of the highest earners and not have a specific plan for Havertz. So that's where the excitement comes from.
Yeah, I get that. I do get that. Anyone think it's a bad bit of business for Arsenal?
It's a
Chelsea
risk.
fans?
It's a risk. It's an absolute risk.
I
65
mean,
million for this guy.
we're saying it's a risk, but if you look at the options they've got in that kind of attacking number 10 kind of, like they've got loads now. So we're saying it's a risk, but even if he just comes in now, right now, even as a squad player, it's better than what they had before. It's actually better than what they had before. Forget the amount they're paying. He's not coming in right now, and I'm not looking like, yeah, he's starting over Odegaard, or he's starting over Martinelli on the left, or he's starting over Gabriel Jesus. But to have someone like that off the bench, that's what you want. You want squad depth.
They're not bringing him off
Now-
the bench, though. He's going to start in the 11th.
Not
Yeah, but
necessarily. I think.
but there's no, not necessarily. Where's the confirmation for that?
Yeah, here's what I'll say.
If
on-
Rice
I
comes
think-
in, if
I
they
think-
get Rice,
Guys, sorry, let Bhavs. Sorry, JJ. Let Bhavs as a Gooner. Like, what's
Yeah.
your thoughts on that? Sorry.
I don't think he'll start straight away, but he can start games. I think fans need to get out of this idea that you just have one starter. If we want to compete with Man City, you need to have multiple starters. So at times, Havertz will be on the bench, but at times he'll start games. I think it's less about starts now, more about minutes. How many minutes does Havertz play next season? And I think with Arsenal being in the Champions League, the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, and the Premier League, often, we were talked about last year, Arsenal giving up the FA Cup and stuff. How can we change that now? It's by signing a first-team caliber player who might not start every week, but that's what you want. You want to have the Mahrez off the bench. You want to have that type of option where sometimes he'll start, sometimes he won't. But I think Havertz he'll play an important role in the first team next season. He'll play a lot of minutes.
Price tag. This is my thing.
Yeah.
Is price tag again. If you have a player that went to Chelsea for £68 million, and me and Don talked about this 3 years ago, he was great at Bayer Leverkusen. He had like 17 goals a season, one season, and like 12 the second season. He was still 20 years old, and he went to Chelsea, played 3 years, didn't perform. I was expecting Arsenal to say, you know what? Here's 35, 40 million. That's what he's worth now. And then we're going to improve this guy. We're going to trust Arteta to bring the best out of him after these stinky 3 years. But to go and literally just pay kind of the same money that Chelsea paid 3 years ago is too much for me. I think you're taking a player that didn't perform in the last 3 years and assuming that he's going to come in and play the same way he played at Leverkusen.
Go on.
Go on, bro.
I was going to say, are you sure it was £68 million that Chelsea paid? Because I'm pretty sure.
This is the reported 80 million euros is the transfer fee.
Isn't that? But that's the base fee. Surely is add-ons involved. So surely them winning the Champions League.
By the end of it, yeah. By the end of it, yeah. But at the time, the amount that we paid is what.
Yeah. So the £60 million that Arsenal paying is including add-ons. So the base might be lower. The base may be lower, and I think what I saw today is an example of why Arsenal are taking longer for Rice than they got Havertz still done, because Havertz was more installments based. Chelsea were willing to accept £70 million a year or so, whereas West Ham want 50-50 straight up for Rice. So I think with Havertz it's a risk, of course, but any transfer has a risk behind it. There's guaranteed surefire transfers that fans thought would work out. I'll give you an example. Last year, Yves Bissouma, bargain, right? He's going to be the biggest hit ever. And fans thought it was a guaranteed success. He goes there and he hasn't quite worked out. So every transfer has risk. I get the Havertz stuff because he hasn't worked out at Chelsea, but I think Mikel sees a talent that was fantastic at Leverkusen. And if we had signed the Leverkusen Havertz, there'd be more excitement. But I get the pessimism.
But honestly, I don't think it's coming in to be on the bench though. I don't see you guys paying over 200k a week, 60 million. The way you're, persisting with him to bench him, especially when Xhaka's supposed to be leaving, and every Arsenal fan I'm speaking to, a few articles I'm seeing online, everyone's saying he's going to come in to play that left centre mid. So I don't think you're going to pay that much money. Like, Arsenal have money, but we know that you guys dilly-dally about paying for players and stuff, right? So realistically, I just don't see him coming in and not starting games. I don't see it.
No, he will start. But I'm saying he's not a guaranteed starter. there will be games where he will sit on the bench, and he's not like he's going to be our, Odegaard captain starting week in, week out. And you need to have that now. So yeah, I think he'll start games. He'll start a majority of games, but it'll depend on the game state. If we're up against a Man City, you're not going to play Havertz, Odegaard, and a part of your Rice in midfield. You're going to have a bit more defensive assurity. But if you're playing up against a deep block, a team that wants to park the bus, you're going to have Havertz alongside Odegaard. It gives Arsenal options.
Yeah, look, I agree with what people are saying. I think it's a risk, but like the Mount, I'm going to keep the same energy because I don't want to be a hypocrite. Again, I look at Arteta's transfer record and it's good. It's very good. So the fact that he wants him so desperately as well to pay him this amount of money, and I know Chelsea fans don't want to hear this because whenever you sell someone, you essentially want them to not do very well. Other than when you had Hazard go to Real Madrid, I think there was a hope that he'd go there and prove he was good, as good as Ronaldo. That worked out. You sometimes get those feelings, but generally a player leaves, you never really want them to do as well, unless they're stepping down. I'm sure Liverpool fans would like to see James Milner do well at Brighton as an example, but you get my point. It's going to be a very intriguing one to see. There's some super chats here. First one says, AA says, big up Terry and Bhavs. Kai Havertz, the new Dennis Bergkamp.
That's a new notion now on the internet.
Is it?
Do you know what was crazy? Yeah. It's because of Thomas Tuchel as well. He was the one who started this. Thomas Tuchel said, I see Bergkamp, Van Persie, and someone else in Havertz. And so when a manager says that, everyone starts saying, "Oh, but if he sees it, then I can see it as well." But it's a mad shout.
They picked it, and started like tweeting it and talking about it. The new Dennis Bergkamp.
Yeah, crazy.
That is definitely a crazy one. This from Tevin, long time no see. Tevin says, now it's not the time for meltdowns, but if Arsenal don't get this done, actually, I'll come back to that one. I thought it was about Kai Havertz. Anything about Rice we'll come on to later. Terry, you said that all of Arteta's signings pay off. Zinchenko is defensively vulnerable, liability. Someone's going to noise in the background. I was going to mute that. I'm not too sure who that is. Sorry. Vulnerable, liability, and Jesus average output. When will you be honest? So again, I think there are some defensive deficiencies with Zinchenko, but overall, I think he was a brilliant signing at £35 million. Gabriel Jesus, we all knew he wasn't going to be prolific and score 30 goals a season, but his leadership, his ability, his creativity, his energy, his press, the goals and outputs he did have were a big factor, in my opinion, in putting. And I don't know about what you said last season, Kay, but a team that everybody predicted to miss out on top four, that man helped put them into a title race. So, again, I disagree with you. I'm not saying they're the greatest signings in Arsenal's history, but they've been
flops.
Yeah, they're not flops. They've been a resounding success so far, in my opinion. So, thanks for the super chat. So, Arsenal basically paid 65 million for some squad depth.
Competitive, bro. Why do people just think we're just signing bench players? The whole idea is you sign players that can play in the first team, but no one's guaranteed then. And that's where you have a competitive squad. That's what Man City have, That's why if Champions League final, Kevin De Bruyne goes off injured, on comes Phil Foden. We need to have that level of depth. And if we don't sign players like Havertz, then we're not going to have that sort of options.
So the question for you then, Bhavs, do you think that Havertz will move the needle for you then and actually help you win the league?
It depends on the ceiling of where Arteta plays him, For all we know, if he's not playing as a false nine and he does play as a left-sided 8 as an example, he could explode there. He could have a very good season. So I've seen Mikel Arteta transform a defensive midfielder who was getting red cards, getting yellow cards in Granit Xhaka and produce 7 goals, 7 assists. So if you can coach something like out of Xhaka, I think with what fundamentals Havertz has, there is potential to explode.
Oh, but come on, we didn't need Mikel to know that that's not Xhaka's position. We all used to say that Xhaka's not.
Well, so did you think he'd be a box-to-box goal-scoring attacking midfielder?
I mean, that's where he used to play for his country. We used to have this conversation all the time about Granit Xhaka. It's not just Mikel that saw it. Everyone.
He's never been prolific though, and last season he was impacting the final third. I think that's the idea. Yeah, you could say maybe a little bit higher, but as an actual attacking midfielder, 7 goals, 7 assists. I think that matched someone like Pogba's tally or something like that. So it's very good numbers there. So my point is, Mikel has seen players in the past that are misprofiled, as you just said yourself, transform him elsewhere. So if let's just say Havertz had been misprofiled at Chelsea and he wasn't a false 9 or whatever, he brings him to Arsenal and finds the right position for him. Why can't he explode?
I think it's a good point. And I'm definitely intrigued to watch this one play.
You got Terry on.
SG here says my computer's getting a little bit crazy on me right now, so I apologize about that. I'm back. Sorry, my computer went a bit crazy. It says Havertz, the new Bergkamp standards on the floor. again, I wouldn't take certain people on Twitter too seriously. Even Bhavs, I love Bhavs, but I don't take him seriously on Twitter. It's one of them ones. Bhavs' Twitter is not the real Bhavs. We're going to come back to Arsenal. We're not going to come back to Arsenal. We're going to come back to Arsenal later on in the show. But a full agreement has been reached this afternoon between AC Milan and Newcastle. Personal terms are agreed. Tonali will be a Newcastle player. Talk to me. It's a massive signing for Newcastle. It's a massive statement of intent. But I do sense across social media a difference in opinion in relation to how good he is. Talk to me. Talk to me.
I think people are just hating on this, on that. To be honest with you, like I feel like Tonali, ever since he was at Brescia, I might be pronouncing that incorrectly, but ever since I've seen him there, and he's moved obviously to AC Milan, I think he's been a very, very good player. Now, is he an elite player? No. Can he get to elite levels? Yes. Has he got the ability to and the potential to get there? 100%. You know, this was a guy that people were looking at and thinking, oh, he could be the new Pirlo. And I always thought, nah, Pirlo's not really the guy I think he would be like. He's going to be his own player. He's going to build his own kind of career. So those kind of comparisons, yes, because he can pass the ball, because of the way that he was playing in the middle of the park. But now I feel that the way that he plays, and this is more of a statement than it is more the player themselves. This is to show everybody out there, Newcastle can go to teams like AC Milan and pluck players like Tonali and bring them to bring players like that to their team. Whereas before, a year ago, would anyone have sat here and said, oh yeah, Newcastle can go to AC Milan and take a player from AC Milan, a starting player, one of their better players? That's never ever going to happen. But now, because they're in this position, I think it's more for me about the statement of intent. So what they do behind that, I don't know. But when I'm looking at someone like a Tonali, I think he'll do well in the Premier League. I know a lot of people don't think that, but I can't see why he wouldn't. I think he does fit what the Premier League is about. He's got that level of intensity. Why wouldn't he be a good fit for Newcastle? And they're a team who are on the up. So maybe if he went to a team like, I don't know, Man City or Arsenal or Liverpool, whatever, if he went to one of those big clubs, you might sit there and think, But then at the same time, he's going to a team like Newcastle. He can build with them and get his reputation up to that same level that Newcastle are trying to achieve. So I think it's a very, very good signing for Newcastle.
For me, Tonali, he said it himself. He's more of a Gattuso than Pirlo. He said it himself. When he moved from Brescia to Milan, he said people just take the look and the hair and think I'm a Pirlo. I'm more of a Gattuso guy. I actually was against Tonali when he was linked to Inter for the price, which was 35 million euros at that time, because I think Tonali is more of a fighter, and I kind of in the middle of the park. I like to have one guy, and Newcastle already have two, which is Joao Linton and Bruno Guimaraes. They're really like aggressive, fighting players on the pitch, and Tonali is kind of similar to them. Lots of tackles, lots of tracking back. And I think that they would need more of a technical player, which is what James Maddison comes to the picture, which is their link to James Maddison. I think both of these players together will create a great midfield for them, good depth for the Champions League. Tonali is a good player. I hope that he does well for Newcastle, because I want every team in the Premier League, this is just me personally being neutral, to do well. I want Kai Havertz to do well. I want Tonali to do well. I want Mason Mount to do great things, because I want people to challenge Man City. Otherwise, we're just going to be sitting here watching Man City win every year. But Tonali for Newcastle, it's, as G said, an absolute fantastic statement signing. It's telling people that we're here to do good business, attract top player. He is a winner. He won with Milan. He starts every week for Milan. Yes, he's not still 23 years old. Young, can develop. Maybe they overpaid for him because he's a superstar for that Milan, but I will take it. From a Newcastle, you will have to overpay. At this moment in Newcastle's history, they will have to overpay. Good signing for them. Overrated a little bit, just from a Serie A fan. Overrated a little bit, but he can do good, especially under Eddie Howe, who transformed Joao Linton. Look at like everybody at that. Willock, he transformed players. Jacob Murphy playing good football now. So I'm not going to sit here and say he can do well with him, but I thought that the profile is similar to Bruno Guimaraes and Joao Linton.
I think having that combination even of Joe Linton, Tonali, and Bruno Guimaraes, I think in certain games that's exactly what they're going to need when they're in Europe. In certain games, because of their lack of experience, they might not want to go, do you know what I mean, all out attack and play their kind of more creative players in terms of Willock and Maddison, if they're able to go and get him links of obviously other players as well. I think that midfield is better than Liverpool's. I think that midfield rivals Arsenal's. I think that midfield rivals Chelsea. I like that midfield will be very, 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 very solid, very solid, and it's going to be scary because if this is the first signing they're making 1 year after gaining Champions League for the first time, God forbid what happens next season in 2 seasons' time.
Well, and you've also seen some of the things they've got going on as well, Newcastle. I'll come back to Tonali in a minute. There's talk that they're going to get Ruben Neves on loan for 2 years. And it's actually joined now by Pete as well, which is great. I know he had a bit of... he has some family commitments. So he's joining us now. But Newcastle, Tonali, done deal coming in. I think, though, Spurs will rival them for Maddison, but Maddison's a fool. He's a fool if he picks Tottenham over Newcastle. They also might be doing something which I know the Gary Nevilles and the Jamie Carragers are looking at as fraud and it should be banned, but they might be getting Ruben Neves on loan from the Saudi club buying him for 2 years, which is a brilliant way of circumventing FFP. It's actually more brilliant than what the Qataris did with Neymar. Again, PSG never actually bought Neymar. Qatar gave him a personal sponsorship deal of 200 million and he bought his own contract out. It's smart. It's clever. Again, if you don't want that to happen, create a rule. But this Newcastle midfield going into next season, if they have Ruben Neves, Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, maybe Maddison added to the mix, the levels they're about to go up, it is scary. And it's another message to so much faster Newcastle doing this than anybody expected. But Pete's here. Pete is a Geordie himself. What do you make of this news about Tonali today?
I've got to be honest, I'm absolutely buzzing. He's a supremely talented player, and this is the kind of ballpark that Newcastle have been talking about since they came into the club that they wanted to sign. It's never ever been about the Neymars and the ton of world elite players that are already there. Newcastle made it quite clear they want the players that are young to make them the next star. That's what they want to do with the players that they're bringing in, and I think it's very, very clear on their sort of ideology with the likes of Bruno, with the likes of Botman, with the likes of Isak, and now, fingers crossed, it looks like it's going to get done with the likes of Tonali. Now, is he the finished article? No, but that's what it's all about, and this is why we've got the type of manager we've got in Eddie Howe to try and get that next level out of them and to coach him to become a better player. But look, as a Newcastle fan, I'm ecstatic by this because it's a position that we desperately needed to fill. That number 6, you can also operate as a number 10. We needed to fill that spot in the midfield. We want to push Bruno further up the pitch to have more influence on the game. And someone like Tonali coming in definitely allows that to happen. It was either going to be him or Barella. It turns out that Barella was just a little bit too much more expensive. And the key is that AC Milan were willing to do the deal, which after what happened with us and Botman and AC Milan last summer, I was actually quite surprised about. But it got done, or it is getting done. I'm excited to watch him tonight for Italy. He's going to captain the side. And I'm excited about what could potentially happen because we're not done. We're not done in this window. You talked about Maddison and Szoboszlai. I fully expect us to get one of those two. Some in the fan base are thinking that we might even get both, but I don't know about that. I think we'll probably get either one of those two players, and that would just be an unbelievable sum.
Well, maybe another club in Saudi will buy that player and loan him to you for 5 years. But listen, the reason I'm not going to condemn it, right? We're going to get into Chelsea later. I'm not going to condemn it. If Man United get Qatari owners and a Qatar football club we've never heard of buys Mbappe for 180 million and loans him to Man United for 6 years, I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to say, great. I'm not going to moan about it. And no one on this panel would moan if it was their club. And that's the thing for me. As long as it isn't against the rules or it isn't against the laws of the game, think bigger, think better, behave better. Viewers, let us know what you think about the signing in the comment section below. Keep making sure like buttons are hit as well. There's another big deal that was reported, though. Liverpool boys. Reportedly, you've made a 55 million euro bid for Tchouameni, and Real Madrid are prepared to let him go for 80 million. Can you see this getting done? Can you see this getting done, JJ?
Hell no. The disparity between the two, like the fee that the Real Madrid are requesting and what Liverpool have bid, rumored 55 million euros, is so far apart. I mean, that's laughable. That's laughable. I mean, they bought him for 80. So what, they're going to be making a 40 million pound? Real Madrid aren't going to do that business. It's just logic. Real Madrid, their net spend is like 8 million, if I believe, in the last 6 seasons, something ridiculous like that. That in terms of, from a business standpoint, Real Madrid have executed outgoings and signings really, really, really well. They're not going to let Tchouameni go for 50 million. So unless Liverpool go and find an extra 30, 40 million to kind of tempt Real Madrid, I just don't see that happening at all. We had an opportunity to get him for 80 million last year. We didn't do it because we were holding out on the Bellingham deal. We ended up getting Darwin Núñez instead because Bellingham wasn't available. And now here we are, man. Looks like we're scrambling right now, to be fair, Terry. I don't know what's going on. This was supposed to be a rebuild. But look, it's early in the window. We just got to have hope at this point. I don't know what G's got to say, but yeah, man.
Go on, G.
You said it, bro. Like 55 million, 80 million. We all know Liverpool ain't spending that kind of money, even for a player, in my opinion, that they would want, purely because we've got so many other areas that we need to sort out, in the pitch. So for us to then say we're going to buy someone like a Tchouameni, I'd be super. That'd be one of the shocks of the summer window if Liverpool were to even go out and sign someone like him, purely because of the amount of money that we actually do spend. On top of then, we still need to potentially buy we need 2 more midfielders. You need a couple of defenders. They might potentially be looking at someone to play in the forward area. Like, we're already penny pinching as it is currently. We're already looking at the deal for Kefa and Thuram, for example, and that's looking a bit like we don't want to get in the bidding war. Do you want him or do you not want him? So to then say Tchouameni, you're going to then go splash out 80 million euros on that guy? I don't see that happening. I think what you're going to see from Liverpool this summer is all of the players that Liverpool will sign will be no player who moves the needle, but there'll be potential. There'll be decent players that could potentially be good players, in the future. But if we're talking about players like Tchouameni's level, Liverpool, in my opinion, don't have that kind of source at this current moment in time to go out and get those kind of players. And I don't think we would. And I don't think Jurgen Klopp actually would go and get these kind of players unless his team was in a set position where we only needed 1 player in the summer. But where we need minimum 4 new players, that's not happening.
It's funny with Liverpool because I felt a few weeks back, you signed McAllister and you were then linked with Kone and Thuram, and it looked the way it sounded by the media, and even journalists that don't really cover Liverpool were saying, for once, a lot of information is coming out. It looks like they're acting quickly, but it is as dry as a camel's proverbial. Like right now, the news has dried up. There's nothing going on, and we're seeing Arsenal get criticised for, underbidding for players, but they're in for 4 people right now. Man United are bidding for 2 or 3 people and getting more criticism than Liverpool. Yes, you've signed someone, but you need such a big overhaul this summer. I don't know about rivals here, Bhavs. Like, Liverpool are a team that everyone expects to be straight back in the top 4 next year. Do you think they're doing the business that warrants it, that makes you believe they'll be back in the top 4 next season?
I think one thing Liverpool have is, with Klopp, their system has proven itself that it can fight with Man City. So it's just about finding the right personnel. But you're right, in terms of ambition, compared to what you have at Arsenal and United and so on and so forth, and then, of course, City themselves, it doesn't seem like they have the level of ambition right now coming from the ownership, which, of course, is their problem, to go and fight one of those teams there. The signings they're making could be smart, by the way. Certain players that fans might not know of, they might be the right choice for them. And that's what got them, to where they were in the first place. But I think Liverpool's team is in a really big crossroads right now, because players like Salah, Van Dijk, how many more years do they have of elite level? Is this like the last couple of years? And once that goes over, how do you replace those guys? So that's why, in terms of looking as an Arsenal fan to Liverpool, I see if they get the right profiles, then they could fight other teams. But I just don't know if their owners will ever allow them to truly compete consistently again and again, like United have done, or United will try to do as well. Arsenal trying to do now. Newcastle themselves, I think Newcastle will be there next season again, and Man City. If they get Rice, for example, then what we doing here? What's the point of even playing against them?
Yeah, Liverpool are putting. Sorry. No, go ahead, G. Go ahead, Jen. It's your club. Go ahead.
No, all I'm going to ask back
vent and give us everything.
No, I'm not even going to vent. It's just all I wanted to ask is, obviously you mentioned Klopp's tactics, and you're right. Obviously they couple of seasons ago, we were really, really dominant, etc., etc. In terms of the profile of players, when people speak about this, do we ever really look into context? If you look at all the players bar Fabinho and I'm going to say Naby Keita, I think those are the only two players. What player did Liverpool sign and were ready to actually win today? Were all the players not just project players? No, we didn't win straight away when Virgil van Dijk came in.
No, but he wasn't a project player, was he?
No, but they're not players that I'm saying are going to come in and actually win today. You can potentially, if you want to throw Virgil van Dijk, I'll give you Virgil van Dijk if you want to throw that in. So 3 out of the, 8, 9, 10, 11 players that we've signed in terms of first teamers who've gone on to win things under Jurgen Klopp. The rest of them, the Robertsons, the Gini Wijnaldums, the Salahs, the Manes, who else have we signed in that time? James Milner was obviously there prior to that. All of these players, even Firmino coming in prior to Jurgen Klopp being there, none of these players that we're signing, which is not a problem, none of these players are players that are coming in to win today. Most of these players that we're signing, like they're all looking at Kefren Turam, Alexis McAllister, Gravenberch, Kone, Gabby Viega, good players, absolutely really good potential players. None of those players scream to me, you know what, they're coming into a team to really, I think someone mentioned it, I think in regards to Arsenal, are they coming in to move the needle? None of them move that needle. I'm not saying you can't go out there and sign those players. Of course, everybody needs potential players. But what's wrong with then, as an example, getting a Tchouameni, someone who is actually ready to win today? Potentially looking at a Barella, someone who is, I'm not saying get both of them. I'm just saying you might just get one, and then maybe you get a Kefren Turam as an example in terms of the kind of profile of players, because what you end up with is a bunch of project players. We're waiting 2-3 years. So we're going to just miss these next 2-3 years, let Arsenal do their thing, let Man City do their thing, let Chelsea do their thing, Manchester United do their thing, let Newcastle do their thing, and pray in 2-3 years' time we have the same impact that we had 2-3 years ago. It's now 4 years since we won the Premier League. People don't want to speak on that because it's so recent. It's 4 years now.
It's this thing, but recent turns into a long time. Like Man United get ridiculed. Arsenal get ridiculed for going 19 years, a long time. Man United has been a decade. Chelsea's has been they're going into 7 years, and it's suddenly like you don't win it next year, the year after. Suddenly you're going 6, 7, 8, and it built into a long time again. And yeah, Liverpool's been funny. Go on, you were going to say something, Mo? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I have this feeling about Liverpool. This is the way I look at Liverpool. I feel that Liverpool are putting all their eggs in one basket, which is Jurgen Klopp, assuming that he's going to do wonders with every single player that he signed. And I saw from looking from outside that when the benchmark is raised in the Premier League, because if you look at Arsenal, even Arsenal signing Kai Havertz, going for Declan Rice, they might sign another Timber as well. Man United are looking, Mason Mount, it doesn't matter if it's good or not, but the benchmark is raised. And even look at the Caicedos and the Enzos at Chelsea. I thought that Liverpool would raise that, will go up with them, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like everybody else is raising the benchmark, while Liverpool still, we want to operate the same way. We're content with what we have, and we just want to keep going forward, assuming that we're going to get the same results while the other teams around him are trying to improve. Even Newcastle catching up to Man City. Yeah. And it's astonishing that nobody at Liverpool Football Club are seeing this, unless it's all about business, as we all agreed before, that these owners only care about revenue minus expenses equal profit. That's it.
It's the owners.
That's what I was going to talk about, the owners. I was actually going to, sorry, Jerry, just a quick point. I was going to talk about the owners because, like, I know what you guys are saying in terms of the caliber of players that you bring in, because Liverpool don't really bring in like ready-made players. But with Klopp, he's been here nearly, is it 10 years he's been here?
7.
He's been here, 7 years, right? And at the start of his career at Liverpool, he brought in, Mane, your Robertson, Salah, and he's turned these guys world-class. But now, do you think it's the right tactic, like Mo said, to like start the whole process again and have to start developing these players? Because Klopp, is he going to be here for another 5 years, during that period? So I think you're going to have this problem whilst FSG are here because they clearly don't want to spend. But again, these players need to get developed. Like you guys have said, they're not going to move the needle. You're not going to spend 80 million on a Tchouameni. So people that are kind of saying Liverpool are going to be in there to win the league next season, I'm not too sure, man. Because when I'm seeing the business that Newcastle are doing, Arsenal, Man United are probably going to do some more business there. Chelsea, I'm not too sure, man. I'm not too sure. I think you're just going to get players that fall under that. in all honesty. But I could be wrong, but that's how I look at it.
Yeah,
Until you get rid of
while Man City go and sign Kovacic and try to sign Gvardiol and bidding for Declan Rice, Liverpool are going for project players.
No, but Mo, what it is, but what it is, when I've realized, like, last couple of weeks, is we all believe Liverpool need a rebuild and there's a massive rebuild needed and we need this player, that player, that player. I guarantee you there's a massive cohort in the club, whether it's the manager, some of the players, someone high up that just goes and thinks last season was just a blip. We know our level. Look at these games against. Look how we performed against City. Look how we performed against United. Look how we performed against Arsenal.
Curtis Jones did. Look what Curtis Jones did in the last 2 months of the season.
100%. And you look at it, and we're in a sticky situation because we need this midfield rebuild. But it's not like we haven't got any midfielders. If Kefir and Thuram comes in, we've got 8 midfielders. 8. City don't have 8 midfielders to go and rotate, but we've got 8. So if we've got 8 midfielders, they're looking at it and saying, no, we've got the players in. It's now about the right personnel, the right quality. I look at McAllister. Would Liverpool have gotten McAllister if he wasn't 35 million? If he was 70 million, like Caicedo, are Liverpool going in for him? No.
Nope.
There was an opportunity there, and we went and took it. Gakpo, why did we purchase him when we all needed a midfielder? Because there was an opportunity that presented itself. Oh wow, we can get him for that price. Yeah, we can get him. If Gakpo was 80 million, are we buying him? Nah.
I think you sell Gakpo in a couple of years, bro. I tell you, make a profit on Gakpo. A couple of years, Gakpo's stock is gonna get higher. And then it's all about the profit. It's all about the profit at that
Terry,
time.
I don't know if you Liverpool fans have seen that picture of Enzo, Jude, and Caicedo together. They were all linked to Liverpool. So that's the problem that you guys have. Do you know what I mean? You're not really getting
but look at
that move the needle.
Look at that drop. Look at that drop. Like, I'm not going to say drop. I don't like being disingenuous because these players might turn out to be good players. But I'm sorry, but you're telling me that you were in for all of these guys and you've gone from that to then say, you know what, we're going to get Kefir and Thuram, we're going to get Alexis McAllister, and you know what, throw in Gravenberch. That team is then going to help you to challenge. Yeah, top 4 maybe. Like, we'll challenge for the top 4. That's about it.
Especially when other people are improving. No, sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry. We've got some super chats here. First one says the report claims Liverpool will wait until Thuram's involvement at the under-21 Euros has ended before advancing with him their first bid. Well, that's all well and good, unless he goes there and has a top-class tournament, and suddenly that price
is 80 now. It's 80 now.
It rises again. I get what. Honestly, you're a great guy. I get what the report says, but yeah, I would try and get it done now. This here, not on this subject, but it says Bhavs has shown me the net ain't real. Slander him. I think it's about Kai Havertz here. Slander him weekly for 3 years. Now doing up Havertz prop. These gooners are beyond shameless. Makes me sick. Is what DJ.
Find me the slander. Find me the slander, bro.
This here says, if the manager wants him, I want him. He's stunk for 3 years, and we are taking the piss. We've seen him play in every attacking position, and he stinks. That's talking about Kai Havertz again. There, these are from a little bit earlier on in the show. Thank you, Tito. I appreciate that. On to some. One here says Liverpool first 11 that worse compared to other teams. No, but you don't win leagues and titles and cups with 11 players. You win it with a squad. You need a strong squad, my friend. I think we'd say that.
What it is, Terry, how I look at it, like, just one point before you go on to the next point. If Liverpool get in these caliber of players, right, Klopp is literally going to have to squeeze everything that he can to get out of them in order to compete. Because if City get Rice, you know, if we get Caicedo, again, Newcastle, that midfield is dangerous. He's going to have to squeeze everything he can out.
Every ounce of juice. There's no doubt. Speaking of juice, Chelsea have just bought Strasbourg, and the report earlier said 40%. But according to Jacob Steinbeck, you're talking nearly 100% of the club Chelsea have just gone and bought. So they've got relationships going on in Saudi. They've just bought Strasbourg. They're selling lots of players. Chelsea doing some interesting business, Don.
Yeah, I think it's good. Obviously, one of the things that Todd Bowley said when he came in was that, you know, they're looking at this multi-club model. Man City have it. You know, they've got the City group. They've got a range of clubs. If you guys remember when Lampard played for City and then he ended up at is it New York?
New York
What the
FC.
name of it? New York FC. Vieira was at Man City, ended up at New York FC. That's how he started his coaching. So I think it's good for us to actually have like a feeder club when it comes to players that we're buying and actually loaning them out. Somewhere where we can actually organize that structure and put an environment where our players are actually going to develop and do well. And obviously generate income as well. So this is just one of many clubs that we're looking at. So I think it's definitely a positive thing that we're doing. Looking at this multi-club model, I think it's exciting times for us.
Out of ignorance, can I ask a question, please? Are they allowed to own 2 clubs that belong to UEFA? Because I think City Group don't have any club in UEFA. Seriously, I really don't know.
Yeah, I guess again, essentially, so
Like Leipzig do, don't they?
yeah,
Strasbourg and
there are. I don't
Salzburg.
I don't know the mechanism around it, but yes, you're able to do it. There was also talk in this a few months back because there was a time they were talking about Man United and PSG, and essentially UEFA, I'm paraphrasing here, have basically said, yeah, we can kind of rework the rules to make it work as well. So yeah, again, the governing bodies care about money, and this will mean more money going in. And again, the French Strasbourg are a French team, right?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I said it and then thought, I'm going to look really dumb. My geography's awful. The French football are going to want it because it's money coming into their league. UEFA are going to support that. And it is what it is. And listen, I hope that when we get Qatari owners, they're doing the same thing. I wanted to ask quickly, because we are going to go on to the big Arsenal news. It's not even Arsenal news. It's City and Arsenal and Man United news now about Rice. But now that 3 big teams are in for Rice, is it important now, guys, that Chelsea maybe get this Caicedo deal locked off quick? So that, because we all know that maybe 2 of the 3 teams are going to miss out on Rice. Caicedo might then become a number 1 target. Is it about paying that money now and getting it done for Chelsea?
100%. For me, how I look at it, we're not really hearing much about it, but that doesn't mean that we're not getting things done. Fabrizio's been saying quite a few times that we're still attacking the situation. I'm hearing a few things that we're close to an agreement. Again, I don't listen to these ITKs on Twitter, but knowing how long we've been wanting this guy, and the fact that he's our main target, there's definitely things happening in the background. Just because we're not seeing constant bids coming in doesn't mean that we're not close to an agreement. So yeah, you are right, Terry. We definitely need to get Caicedo sorted out because if Man City hijack that deal with Rice, then Arsenal will be back in there. I still think that we'll get him over them. In all honesty, I don't think Champions League is the be-all end-all, but you just don't want a situation where you're up against adversity. You want things done properly, especially with your main target. You want to just relax. Do you know what I mean? You don't want a situation where it's like, shit, what's going to happen here? Because anything can happen. It's, the window's really unpredictable. Anything can happen. So I don't want a situation where we're just, we're a bit of lingo and there's other teams are involved. Because right now, it seems that we're the number 1 choice and it seems that we have a free run at it, to be honest. I hope we can get that sorted out before anything happens with Rice. In all honesty.
There's an interesting Jacob Steinbeck, who broke the news about you buying the club. He's actually come out and said that it's understood Man United could switch focus to deal with Brighton's Moises Caicedo if they end their interest in Mason Mount. Oh no,
he does a lot of opinion work. Jacob Steinberg, he does a lot of opinion work, and people buy it. Like he gives a lot of opinions and puts it as his main headline, and people think that's an actual thing that's going to happen. If that makes sense. Yeah. You're not going to stop going after Mount. I think that's going to happen. That's a given. So I'm not reading much into that, to be honest.
Don, quick one. With that whole deal, then how does it work? Because I know Brighton are interested in Colwill. Sorry. Are you going to have to let go of Colwill in order to get that Caicedo deal over the line? Because I know they've put, I think it was a world record, a record bid for Brighton. I think it was like 40 million or so, and I think you guys turned that down. Are you going to have to part with Colwill in order to get Caicedo, or?
Yeah, no, Colwill's a no-go. We've told them time and time again he's not for sale. And the fact that Koulibaly's been sold as well, he's the left centre back that we had in our squad. So realistically, we're only going to have Badiashile. That just goes to show me that Colwill was going to come into the squad, because as of January, it was reported from Matt Law, actually. He said that Colwill was definitely in the plans for the season, and we're definitely going to look to bring him back. So I don't think we're going to get bullied there, because Colwill was a top player, man. I think this is going to be an England international. I rate him so highly. I'm not even just saying this because I'm a Chelsea fan, but I just think footballing ability, I think, is amazing. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think Brighton are just trying their luck, maybe just to be, they're annoyed that we're going to take someone else from them. But end of the day, they're open to selling Caicedo. So yeah, Colwill's not going to happen. We're going to keep him.
Yeah, Pete, from your point of view, looking at the Caicedo deal, a lot of people interested in him. 80 to 100 million pounds. Do you think that's good value for a player with like one full season under his belt?
I think the easy answer to that is no, but it's not about what their value is now. It's about what the selling club is willing to sell them for, and it's about what the buying club is willing to pay. It's one of those things. A lot of players now in modern football, you have one good season, 70 million. Like, it's just one of those where you've got to pay the money, and especially when you've got more than one team that have been looking at him. Yeah, it was odds on in January that Arsenal were going to get him, then Chelsea were going to get him. Liverpool have been interested in him. Because those pool of teams have been interested in him, it just allows Brighton to just ramp up the transfer fee, and that's exactly what they're doing. And fair play to them, because look, they don't want to let him go. They're about to embark on their first European competition next season, and they want to keep their best players. He's not on massive wages there. They bought him for a nominal fee. They're in a great position right now, and it's whether Chelsea, it's whether Liverpool or whoever it is that's linked with him, Arsenal, or whether they're going to pay the big money to get him out of the club. That's what it's all about right now. But if you're asking me, is he worth that? No. But this is where the transfer market has been completely like lopsided now in the last number of years. To be fair, I'll go back as far as Neymar. The Neymar deal really kind of scuppered the transfer market. The transfer market has never been the same since that Neymar deal, because the year after that, Mbappe went for 100 and God knows how much money from Monaco. And ever since then, it's never really been the same. And so values of players are all over the place now, and it all depends on what the buying club are willing to pay to get that player out the club.
Mm. What it is, Pete, I get what you're saying, but Brighton are open to selling Caicedo, because when Arsenal came in for him, they offered him a new contract, and they basically said to him, "Look, we'll sell you in the summer, and we'll give you more money in terms of your wages, because this guy says he's got all these family members he needs to feed and that." So it's like, cool, stay here, we'll give you a bit more money, and then obviously in the summer we'll sell you. And De Zerbi said it as well. He said, "Look, McAllister, Caicedo, we're planning for them to move. Like, they're gonna move on." So I don't see Brighton being like, "Oh, give us 100 million." I do think we're gonna meet in the middle. I reckon it'll probably be between 80 to 85. That's just me taking a logical guess, to be honest.
But even then, like I say, they've got exactly what they wanted, because how much did they pay for him before? Was it like a few million?
4 million. Yeah. Man United could have got him for 4 million. So
exactly. They paid 4 million for him, but then yet they're going to get 85 back in just over a year. Like, of course they're going to take that. But the point that I made is that if Chelsea don't come up with the money, they'll go, okay, we'll take him into the European season and we'll keep him in.
Pete, guess what? We're getting the money from Havertz. We're getting Caicedo.
There you go. So what I'm trying to say is the real winners are you. You're the real winners there. Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you've already spent the money on buying a new club, mate.
Oh, good one.
If he doesn't go Chelsea, he will go somewhere else, guys. Just be realistic. Caicedo is, I think, the most wanted player in the Premier League, along with Declan Rice. He's gonna go somewhere else. There is gonna be a team that will come in and take him. Even a team not even outside of England. I think Caicedo is a top player, and they already started replacing them. They got Mahmoud Dawood from Borussia Dortmund from the German league. They're actually negotiating another guy from the Italian league. I think they're already preparing for his departure. They are ready for someone to come in, give them the money so the guy can go. They promised him to go, and they're not going to raise his wage from 15K to 200K. They're not going to do that. They're ready to let the guy go, and I think he's going to go to Chelsea at the end.
Yeah, I think right now he will. It's just going to be. It's just intriguing that there's so many transfers are like this, and I suppose that leads us on to maybe the biggest transfer story of the day, which I know everyone's eager to sink their teeth into. Viewers, make sure like buttons are hit. Make sure you are subscribing. Before we do that, we've got a super chat that says, as a Liverpool fan, I hope we get our targets as soon as possible, because Klopp said, I want new signings before pre-season. What happens if we don't? Joe, honestly, I think the guys have detailed that. It's preparation. It's a very short turnaround. Pre-season starts in 2 weeks, but international players are on international duty around now. It may be 3.5 weeks. Man United's first pre-season games in 3 weeks. I don't know about the rest of your clubs, but that's when the season starts. You have to prepare well. So yeah, no, I don't think any club is going to have all their deals before pre-season. But yeah, you maybe want a few more of them. There's no doubt about it. But the big news today, guys, the first bit that's broke is that Arsenal are preparing a new and third bid, an improved bid for Declan Rice of 100 million. We've also been told by Fabrizio Romano that essentially, and I'm not going to do the transfer talk stuff online, but he's happy to join Man City. He's agreed to their personal terms. We know that clubs don't bid unless personal terms have already been agreed. It's been reported this afternoon by some that Man United will make a bid. Some journalists are kind of a little mooted on the fact they're saying they have made an undisclosed bid. That tells me it's cash plus players. 3 teams now in for Rice. Arsenal still leading the race. How do you see this one going, Bhavs? Because a lot of Gooners were a little nervous today when they saw the David Ornstein dagger that City were officially in this race now. Talk to me.
I mean, it's to be expected, right? When you're going to go sign a top quality player, you're going to have it as easy as just one club after him. There's always going to be other teams in for him. So I think it's, in a sense of the player, it just shows how good he is. If Man City think he can replace Gundogan, if United want to sign him as well, you can expect the interest there. The offers are the offers, you know, unless City offer crazy amount more than Arsenal, I still think Arsenal are the favourites because I think Rice has made clear his preference is Arsenal. But that being said, if City agree a deal and Arsenal don't, he would be happy to go to Man City, and likewise Man United. So for Arsenal, it's a matter of they've convinced the player that Arsenal is a place for him, but it's not about the player right now, it's about the club. And West Ham want as much money as possible up front. Arsenal don't have Man City's level of instant cash where they can go and drop 50 per window, and they have other targets as well. So it is going to be difficult to get it done, but hopefully that third offer is the right structure because Arsenal know what West Ham want. The concern is Man City can blow you out of the water. But that being said, you know, Man City in the past have always gone into, they don't like going into bidding wars. You know, Harry Maguire's an example. I think there was Alexis Sanchez, another one as well. There's a few players that Man City could have signed, even Virgil van Dijk, and they will have their limits there. So for Arsenal, because he's our priority, because we need him more, and I think he'd be more of a starter at Arsenal, I'd hope that we can get the deal done. But it's, again, a matter of just agreeing the deal.
Perhaps I get that point that you make, but how I look at it, right, is Man City would have spoken to West Ham and they know exactly how much they want, right? The terms that Man City offer and the targets and the add-ons that they add would be more realistic because right now they're a winning club. If they say, oh, Champions League and Premier League and we'll give you an extra 15 million or whatever, West Ham are more inclined to accept that because it's more realistic because you guys haven't won a league in 20 years and you've never won a Champions League. So as much as you want to add that as an add-on, they might look at that and think this is unrealistic because Arsenal haven't showed us that they can do this. I know that's what the plan is in terms of your next phase. Don't know what phase you guys are in now, phase 4, whatever. That's your next phase. So that's, you know, start challenging for these trophies, yeah. But if you're looking at Man City right now, they're going to come with the upfront payment, which in my opinion will be a lot more attractive than what Arsenal will offer because Arsenal haven't got a good record of negotiating well. Do you know what I mean? You've done this with Mudryk where the terms weren't great, and now the same thing's happening where you're dilly-dallying and Man City have come in. So it's a bit long for you guys. I'll be honest.
I wouldn't classify.
Man City want Rice. Man City want Rice, and if they want him, they're gonna get him. Right?
I don't classify it as dilly
No, they wanted Kukurea and you got him.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Man City have done this. The point is, only because Man City have more resources available isn't our fault. They've got richer owners. What can we do about that? You know, they've got more money than we can spend right now, and they can pay more up front. Likewise, Chelsea did with Mudryk as well. People forget that Arsenal negotiating a good deal, and then you had Todd Bowley lose all composure and paid a lot up front. So if teams do that, we can't change that. We don't have that same level of luxury of Man City or Newcastle or other teams that can just go, you know what, we'll just pay this up front instead. We have to be a bit more sensible because we don't have
There is another card here. There's another card here, Don. There's another card which is Calvin Phillips. Sam Allardyce said it in a podcast and he said that I see Calvin Phillips fitting really well at West Ham. West Ham want the money up front so they can actually improve their midfield, right? West Ham are going to play next year. They're going to play Europa League. They need to improve the squad, right? So Calvin Phillips going there plus money, at least that removes some headache from West Ham to replace Declan Rice. And I think that's a card that nobody's thinking about. Yes, they want the money up front, but why do they want the money? Because they want to strengthen the squad. And Man City has the player already to strengthen their squad. It's not about a bidding war or something. They hold more cards. Man City.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, it just depends how important is Declan Rice to the plan for the future plans for Pep Guardiola. If they're looking at Declan Rice and they feel, look, Gundogan's going, Bernardo Silva looks like he's going, and he's going to be our main guy, then they're going to go in for him. I think you mentioned obviously Cucurella and other players there. If they didn't get them, they weren't that bothered. It was like, yeah, we can go and get him. If we don't get him, it's not the end of the world. Haaland was at signing like, yeah, we're going in for Haaland, and they were always going to go and get Haaland, no matter how much it cost. They were just going to go and give him. You can see by the amount they're paying, by the amount he's getting paid per week. I've struggled to see how Declan Rice fits into what City have done previously, but Pep is someone that can tinker a lot with, do you know what I mean, with the way he's going to play. I would think that Declan Rice would actually play more of a 6 at Man City as opposed to being more of that kind of Gundogan role. I don't think they're the same type of player, so I know they would have to kind of change what they're doing, but great player. And if Pep thinks, yeah, he's our man, then I think it's over for Arsenal.
That's the point I was going to make, right? There's always exception to the rules when it comes to certain players. Cucurella is not an exception to the rule because losing out on him, you can find someone else. Do you know what I mean? Pep managed to find a way to actually change his system and make it more solid. Do you know what I mean? He played Nathan Ake there all season. You had Akanji playing a left back all season as well. And if you think if Arsenal had Rice last season instead of Partey, you win the league. So Man City are looking at it like, these guys were onto us last season, you know. Rice is a game changer. We can't let this guy go to them when we've just lost out on Gundogan. Cover is not going to bring you that end product that Gundo had. I reckon Rice will, because Rice, he's actually got tech when it comes to, you know, finishing and, you know, giving that end product. I think I would say he's got more end product than what Kovacic has. So realistically, Rice is the exception to the rule. So I know what you're saying about bidding wars, but City they're gonna come in if they want him and they've identified him as their main target now, same way they did with Grealish. I don't see how they walk away without the player, honestly. And I'm not just saying this as a Chelsea fan. I'm just speaking the game, right?
I'm offended. I'm offended that none of you are talking about United maybe getting him ahead of Arsenal and City.
Do you guys have the money? Really, is the question that I'm only thinking about. But I was going to ask, don't you guys think with Kovacic, like you just mentioned there about Kovacic not really having the end product? Pep will turn him into a Gundogan goal scorer. That I've got no doubts that he could easily turn.
That's what I think.
I don't see that
goal scoring before.
No, regardless if he had it before or didn't.
That's
before,
what I'm saying. If he can turn Gundogan into, why not Kovacic?
Exactly, and this is what I'm saying. I feel like let's put it this way: I'm more likely to see Kovacic being the goal scorer than I am Rice being the goal scorer. Rice, I feel, would almost come in there as kind of like the recycler in the team, someone who's got good touches on the ball, can bring the ball forward. If you talk about scoring goals, Rice isn't really there to score me goals. He's there to kind of play midfield position. Kovacic, I heard he was going to play between the midfield and the attack anyway. So then I'm looking at that thinking, bro, that's Gundogan right there. That's your Gundogan replacement, potentially. And I feel like with Manchester City, we all forget, they're not bothered either way. Get Rice, don't get Rice. It's not going to change up too much of what they're going to do because, as you mentioned, like a Cucurella, they'll get someone else. Like, they'll literally just go out, find someone else. Like, Man City are one of them kind of teams, and Pep's one of those kind of guys. Not saying he doesn't have his main targets. Everybody does, but he's definitely not the manager in the Premier League, or he's one of the few managers who really cares that much when it comes to
short and on the pitch. Short, short on the pitch. It's John Stones, Rodri in that double pivot. Declan Rice adds to that. Now they go for the quad. It's Phil Foden now is fit. It's him, Kevin De Bruyne, and Kovacic behind the striker. I think that's the perfect plan for Man City. They have 3 players for 2 positions in both aspects, the 2 behind the forward and the 2 in front of the defense. John Stones can sometimes drop to the defense and actually strengthen that because we know John Stones has improved that last year massively. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure why people are talking about Declan Rice being advanced. Next to Rodri, it's the best combination. Physical, big, both of them can drive with the ball. Kovacic in front of them with Foden and KDB. Kovacic gives you 25 games. KDB gives you 25 games. Fantastic team that can go for the quad next year.
Does Calvin Phillips go then?
Yes.
I feel like Calvin Phillips already lost his chance with Man City. It's not like he did even a Grealish the first year where he kept trying him. He literally just didn't try him at the end. He preferred to play the young kid. What's his name? That young kid in the double pivot. Instead of playing Calvin Phillips, which tells me a lot on how he thinks about Calvin Phillips. When he prefers an 18 years old over Calvin Phillips.
Yeah. I think with Calvin Phillips, it was an element of unprofessionalism. You know, almost, you know, a bit. I did read things. I'm scratching my mind I don't want to misquote them, but essentially, man's overweight. He's not in great shape. Like, you can be out injured, but you can most injuries you can still train with. Yeah, I literally, do you know what I mean? I've watched both of the Conor McGregor documentaries that are on Netflix, the old one and the new one. This man's had surgeries and he's in the gym 2 days later lifting weights. You can stay in shape when you're injured. Like that's called being a professional. But sorry, Don, you were going to say something, mate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, G, because you know how you said like if they don't get Rice, they'll just go get someone else, right? I don't know, man, because you're talking about someone that's basically on the verge of being world class. He just needs to go to a bigger club, an England international, someone that's knows the in and out of the Prem. West Ham captain, just won a trophy, first trophy in the past 43 years. I was at the parade. I'm from East London, so I was there. I could see how big that is for the club, yeah. And Terry made a good point the other day. Whoever gets Rice right now is getting Rice in his prime. So Man City aren't gonna wanna like. That's not someone that you just lose out on and that's it. Oh, let's just go get someone else. This is a big player that you're gonna miss out on.
I agree with you. I agree with you. However,
Remember, Caicedo's still available. You know, I mean, Chelsea ain't signed him yet.
Now you're biting his bread.
I do hear what you're saying. However, what I'll say about it. Sorry, Pete. Do you need to shoot off, mate? Because I know that you just want to.
Yeah. I was just gonna say just before I go, I completely agree with Rice. It's his time now. In order for him to keep developing his career, he has to move on. This is the perfect time to leave West Ham. He's done what nobody expected him to do at West Ham, is win a European trophy. Now is the time to leave. He'll be leaving as a legend. He'll still be well respected at the club, but he's now making the step on to bigger and better things. And for England and for club, you'll see him playing at his best, especially if he goes to Man City. He'll just knock on another level, that's for sure. But I've got to shoot, guys. It's been a pleasure as always. Apologies I was late.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate that, bro. Thanks, mate. Thank you. Yeah, look, I sort of look at it from this point of view. I get what you're saying. City have got a history of if they don't really like getting into bidding wars. People say they never lost one, but they walk away. So if they do not pay more than they value a player, and they do not pay salary at more than they value a player. That's why they walked away from the Alexis Sanchez deal, the Harry Maguire deal. There's Cucurella, as already mentioned earlier, Jorginho, and it's probably Fred. Every time that happened, the buying club either bid more money or offered bigger salaries, and City just went, that's not what we do. Now, they have the luxury in doing that because they're the best team in the country. They're winning. When you're trying to get back to the top, you have to take those bigger risks. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. There's actually a quote here from TalkSport who say that the Moose, who's obviously well connected to Arsenal, to West Ham, says Declan Rice, he still expects Declan Rice to join Arsenal, mainly due to him being an undisputed starter. And listen, I think Arsenal are still the favourites right now. And I think Arsenal will be selling all of them points. But I said it, funny, people keep coming at me saying, Terry, you've got to apologise to League Gunner. And I'm like, why? Well, you said that he's wrong to be annoyed about lowballing in bids. I didn't say he was wrong. I said I understood what he was saying, but I was explaining the caveat side to that. If Arsenal's first bid 2 or 3 weeks ago was 100 million, they'd be forced into paying 120. So I get why you do it. However, where I agree with Lee, and I said it a week ago when I was with Dean Jones, the bid blue shark is coming. And what Arsenal need to do, it's what they're reportedly going to do now, is bid that 100 million, make the structure good, get it accepted. I don't think, although he may have said this whole notion that he wants to 100% stay in London, it's never been true to that degree. He wants to stay in the Premier League in the UK, but this London thing was always a little bit of an over-exaggerated fallacy. He'd like to.
Ideally.
Ideally. Yeah, and ideally doesn't mean 100%. Before his head is completely turned and he starts to actually, I like the idea of that, stick a ring on his finger, as Beyonce said. Do you know what I'm saying? Get it done. Lop him up, take him off the market. Do you know what I mean? Make him yours. That's what Arsenal need to do now. And most journalists that I've spoken to, either privately or publicly, they've all said the same thing. The only way he doesn't go to Arsenal is if Arsenal mess this up, because they are leading that race, which is why, as a Man United fan, I mean, I'm getting it on Twitter now. No way you're getting him, Terry. Why are you sharing this news? I share the news is the news. Like, I don't think we're going to get Declan Rice, but I'm not going to ignore the fact Man United have put a bid in, mainly because I'm not scared of being told we got rejected, because I'm really not that insecure as a man. But you ever seen that? Remember that meme? That meme of the granddad from The Simpsons walking into the stripper club, and Bart's working there, and he just sort of walks in and walks out. That's how I feel as a Man United fan going in for Rice up against Arsenal, who are leading the race, and Man City, that are just who they are right now. A part of me just thinks, why don't we just go to Brighton? And because I think we can get Caicedo instead of Chelsea. Because I think it's a much easier win to take Caicedo away from Chelsea, than it is Rice away from Arsenal and City. Right,
Terry, do you think Man United have actually gone and got Mount to try and go and tempt Rice by going there? Because there's a lot of reports that Mount and Rice wanted to play together, childhood friends. They might have went and got a Mount and said, you know what, Mount's the first piece, maybe Rice is this second one, because it's a weird one. It's a weird one for me. If United, and it's mad to say, but if United put the same amount of money down, and let's say both bids were accepted from Arsenal and United, I think Rice would have a big choice to make, because for his career, right, Arsenal are in a better place currently, clearly. Challenged for the league last year. But if he was to go and, win major honours at United, his profile of a player is actually bigger, in my opinion. If he wins the Champions League as a United player, if he wins the league as a United player, it just means more in the world of football because of the stature of United. And maybe that's a play that they could potentially try to go and use. It's interesting. We've seen that over the years, United have always been able to go and pull players in because of who United are. Whether it's Falcao, Di Maria. If they come in for Rice as well, Arsenal might be in some trouble if they can put the same type of.
I would just to respond to that. I completely understand where you're coming from, and I think there's an element. Of course, I believe in that as a United fan. I think our takeover is more key than Mount, and what I mean by that is, if we can go and speak to Declan Rice's dad and say, look, it's not official today, it's going to be official next week, but the Qataris have won the bid, they're taking over. This is the plan. I think you can do that. The problem is with Man United right now, we improved last year. We're in a better space than we were. But until our ownership is resolved, if the Glazers are staying, Manchester United are not going to be where Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Newcastle are in 3 or 4 years' time, because we just won't be able to compete because they run us so poorly. If we have new owners, though, that have a massive plan, and Declan Rice is told, we want to sign you, we're going to sign Mount, we're going to go after Kane, we're going to go after Costa or Onana in goal, and you're a big part of that, I think there's a chance, again, you turn his head, which is why there's always a chance. But that's why Arsenal, who are the favourites now, need to get it done, because the longer you leave that out there, the more chance there is, the more possibility there is that you lose out. And I just think, again, I haven't even read the comments. There'll be people saying, waffle, there's no chance. That's just your way of coping with what I'm saying. There's a reason that Arsenal fans are getting nervous online, because they know if they don't get him out of the water quickly, someone else might scoop him up. I still think Arsenal are the favourites, so I'm not getting my hopes up as a Man United fan, because I just don't believe we can do it. If we do, my mind would be blown. But if I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm far more concerned with what City are doing than Man United right now, 100%.
Well, I was going to ask you about that TalkSport, the message that you put about TalkSport, and because of him being a potential guaranteed starter, more or less at Arsenal. And listen, I think Arsenal are going to do well next season. I think they're going to be up there challenging with Manchester City. I do genuinely believe that. But you're talking about playing for the best team in the world, under the best manager in the world, with some of the best players in the world. I understand, of course, you want to play, and he is at that stage where he does need to be making that level up. But I'm sorry, there's no better team in the whole of Europe that you're going to go to and develop, if you're obviously good enough to get into that team, than Manchester City. I don't know any other team that good. Arsenal are a very, very good team, and Arsenal will be challenging 100%, but they're no Manchester City. Do you know what I mean? There are levels to the teams that are out there, even the teams in England. Manchester City are sit on a level by themselves at this current moment in time anyway. So wouldn't he want to test himself? Wouldn't he want to at least try and see if he could go to Manchester City? If he did make that first team squad, Jesus Christ, now he's laughing. Yeah, now he knows he's laughing.
My reply to that would be, we mentioned earlier profiles of if he was to win at United. It applies the same with Arsenal and City. If he was to come to Arsenal and help break our 20-year title drought, it would register bigger. It's like Grealish winning a title. It's big, right? That's for him, but people just go, okay, they do it anyways. Man City will win titles with or without Rice. For Arsenal, it's about coming to that project just about to get there, and him being that final piece of the jigsaw, like Van Dijk was for Liverpool. You just get more praise that you'll be seen as a bigger player.
But it's a bigger.
Do you think so though? Because Van Dijk might have been happier going to Manchester City and winning more than not winning as much. I'm not saying he isn't happy.
Van Dijk's status was higher because he did the Liverpool route in terms of it was harder. It was harder to do it there, but he was one of the first there. And he was a part of breaking a long drought there. And I think it'll be the same with Arsenal, same with Man United. These massive clubs here, once they win that title, that first title after 10, 20, 30 years, it is just bigger because Man City have done it over a long, the recent period of time. So for them, when people do it, no one's really surprised anymore. If City win a title next year, no one's going to sit and go, oh, that's a surprise there. Whereas if an Arsenal do it, a United do it, it will just be a bigger story. It will be a bigger headline.
Bhavs, I get what you're saying, but the main difference here is we're talking about Pep, man. We've had debates about this guy being the greatest manager that we've ever seen. Do you know what I mean? If you get the chance to work with him, I don't see how a player turns that down. I know what people are saying, he might not start at City. Honestly, I think he will start at City, but that's the difference here. We're talking about a generational manager that you can work with in a project that's already proven. Do you go what I'm trying to say?
From a City point of view, I think Pep Guardiola having 2 years left means he wants to mold, and he talked about this, he wants to leave it good for the next manager. He wants to mold more players into the City way of playing football. If that means adding younger players now, 24 years old, like Declan Rice, even leaving Calvin Phillips there to mold these guys for the next coach coming in 2 years' time, for them to actually play the same football, I think it's a very exciting thing. You know that you're a part of a project. Maybe you're not the centerpiece of it, but you're a part of a very successful project that will have years and years of success. I think this plays a big factor in how they convince Declan Rice.
That being said, though, sorry to cut you off there, but in terms of Rice, depending on where he sees his future, if it is as a number 6 in a 4-3-3, Man City have got someone there who's world class, who's 26 years of age, only 2 years older than Rice, who's not going anywhere, who's always fit and available, and that's Rodri. At Arsenal, we're moving on Partey for a reason. We're moving on Xhaka for a reason. We're opening up a space there to just be the guaranteed starter. Whereas at Man City, Rice for England, for example, plays as a number 6. He can't do that for City if Rodri's there. He can play as a pivot, but City don't play a pivot. City would like to have the 2 attacking midfielders. They won't change their way. They might adapt slightly, but again, to play as that lone number 6, he's not starting over Rodri. Okay? And Rodri's not old either.
Yeah, look, I think I still believe it. I mean, Jacob Steinbeck's just put this out, according to Carl B, that Declan Rice remains keen on joining Arsenal despite Man City's intention to bid for him. And that's true. I still think Arsenal do lead that race. But again, it's get it done. If the next bid fails, it could be another 3 or 4 days, and anything can happen in that time. Some of the super chats here. First one says, signing just players. We are Arsenal. We're signing lol. Are we Arsenal? We are signing clubs instead. Strasbourg, here we go. Also waiting for the PR Kings to spin the Rice story now, is what Blaze says. This is here from Guna Dan. What's your take on this, Bhavs? It says, waited 2 weeks with low bids when most Arsenal fans could have told you City would come in. You said it was I'll answer this. Didn't know he was going to call me out. It was smart, Terry, but wasn't Edu is a joke. Well, like I said to you before, that I've said more than one thing. I very much stated that I understand why you do it, because you go in too high. By the way, if you went in too high and the price was now sitting at 120, 130, City may never have bid, because that may be above what they're willing to pay. The thing with transfers is they are such high complex business transactions due to the monetary sums and the media attention that there are dozens and dozens of potential outcomes for any one transfer. Right now, with 3 clubs bidding for Rice, this could go in so many different directions in terms of why teams pull out, what happens, anything. So hindsight's lucrative, and we knew that City were going to come in. But what did I say a week ago, Guna Dan? So I said, I understood why they bid low. But there's a video on Twitter today. Go to my TikTok from a week ago. I said they had to go and pay the 100 million now and get it done. So again, you've misheard me. You've heard me say I get why you bid low, and I get why that's generally speaking is the right strategy. But I clearly stated 8 days ago they've got to go bid the 100 million now and get it done before City come in. So I get you calling me out. I respect the super chat, but I quite literally said Arsenal have got to stop doing this and get it over the line. So
also,
again, I just want to finish off by saying, but that doesn't mean you should not lowball your first offer as a general rule. This is the problem with football fans. I'm not calling you out specifically, Gunnar Dan. We have to get away from this one way of thinking, this polarized, hyperbolic, black or white way of thinking, because every transfer is different. Every scenario is different. And if you can't just pay the asking price straight out, you have to try and negotiate. You have to try and get good deals. That's how business is done. So I understand with this one, but that can't be the blanket approach that every transfer Arsenal have forever. Otherwise, you will run out of money. you will run out of money before your rivals do. Sorry, Bhavs, you were going to say something.
I was going to say the whole Edu Gaspar's a joke thing. I don't think people realize what his job is. His job isn't to put the offers in, nor to negotiate. His job is to put both parties on the table. You know, he's an intermediary. He's the guy who has the contacts, the agents. He'll link up that way. But the whole putting offers forwards, I think people have this idea that Edu's got all the Arsenal money on his phone there, and he's just placing offers like it's FIFA. And he's just bidding. It's not like that. And I think if you're gonna vent your frustration, vent it on the Arsenal negotiating team, not on the guy who's got the two parties together and open negotiations.
Yeah, but
Let's hope that Declan Rice goes to Arsenal, guys, not to Man City. If we want a competitive league, let's hope that he goes to Arsenal.
Oh, I hope he goes to Man United, but yeah.
Or that.
Yeah, this super chat here says, as an Arsenal fan, if City win Rice, want Rice, they'll get him. But Chelsea fans should worry if that happens. We'll get Caicedo, I promise.
You're not going to outmuscle us financially. That's not going to happen.
But I mean, it's not about muscling. I think it's more of, will Chelsea be what Chelsea do? And that is just lose composure. Mudryk, example, you know, we can try to outmuscle you. We can try to have an actual deal there. But what Chelsea have as an owner who'll just go, you know what, bun it. I'm going to buy him anyways. For example, Enzo Fernandez. Enzo Fernandez is a player who Chelsea are like, we're not going to pay the release clause. We're going to just negotiate. But Benfica are like, eventually you'll pay the release clause. We know how you operate. You'll do it. You know, other teams might not, but you will do it. And so they just waited, and eventually what you do, you pay the release clause. So it works out maybe sometimes for you guys, but in the case of Mudryk so far, it's not worked out so far either. So Chelsea are a club, I won't say stupid enough to pay it, but a club that will have that to just go, you know what, we'll just pay it regardless.
Yeah, but Bhavs, we're like Todd Bowley's not in charge of it anymore. It's Lawrence Stewart and
whose money is it?
And they're completely different. Yeah, but they're in charge of the recruitment. They're in charge of negotiating the deal. So I don't see how you guys come in and offer better terms, because you haven't got. There's no evidence that you can show me where I'm going to agree with that point. You're not going to outmuscle us when it comes to the terms. I'm not.
I don't think it's
okay. So Don,
just outmuscling though, but it's also about. Sorry, cut you off there. But it's also about the project, right? So you're thinking if Arsenal and Chelsea are both going side by side for Caicedo, when we both try to agree a deal there, you think Caicedo's picking Chelsea over Arsenal?
I mean, we've still got an attractive project. You know, there's no guarantee you're going to win more majors than us in the next 5 years.
I mean, but right,
you know what I mean? You're just ahead of us in your project. That's all it is.
I don't know if you could say Chelsea have a more attractive project than Arsenal right now. Not only just the fact that he finished 12th, that's amazing, but also in terms of stability. He's going into an Arsenal team that is ready now to fight. Chelsea have to get into the top half first, let alone the top 4 first. So it's a long way for Chelsea. You also don't know about the manager. How is Pochettino going to work out with Arteta or Arsenal? Having been there for 3 years, the squad rebuild is further complete. Therefore, there's more stability there for a player to enter the system and it to work out, better. Chelsea, we don't know how you're going to play next year, what formation you're going to play, who's going to play, and also, the amount of players you still have there as well. Even though you've sold quite a few, you've still got quite a few players there. So, right now, I'd say Arsenal, just because they're more stable, means they're more attractive.
Do we think if Rice goes to Arsenal, Caicedo's on Man City radar or something? As he is on Man United radar. Why we never thought about it? If Arsenal bid the 100 million, and do you think Man City will outmuscle you then, Don?
Yeah. Well, Man City, if Man City come in, that's a different conversation. Because they
I love that you have the same energy for that. You're like, Man City come in, I'm done. I'm like,
if Man City come in,
you're really not worried about Arsenal or United coming in for Caicedo at all, are you?
Not at this stage, no. I'm not.
Let's see when it happens. Yeah, but it's like this. A lot of people would say, I'm not that scared of Anthony Joshua until he walks in a room.
No.
And then it's like, my God.
People, you know what it is, Bhavs? Yeah, like, look, at the end of the day, Arsenal have a really attractive project. And yes, you're right when you say that you lot are more stable than what we are right now, yeah? But there isn't a single Arsenal fan that put you guys to compete last season. When you were doing predictions, no one expected, okay, you might have, but majority of your fan base weren't saying you lot are going to finish in the top 2 or even in the top 4. Some people were saying, 5th, 4th, the same old predictions that you were given. But right now, in terms of what we're looking to build going forward, now that we've actually got structure and Todd Bowley's not in charge of the recruitment, in charge of, negotiating and all of these things, you can see that it's clear now that we're trying to build a team. We're trying to fill some holes. We've got a proper manager who's actually managing the Premier League before. Whether people rate Poch or not, the guy's proven to develop young players. He's gone to France, actually got some trophies now. We might not rate those trophies, but he still had to do it. So next season, people are looking at us thinking we're going to be the same team. If you actually watched us throughout the whole season, a lot of the games, we weren't getting battered. We just kept missing chances. Do you know what I'm saying? How many times did you hear Chelsea need a striker? How many times did you hear we haven't got a CDM? People think that we were so terrible last season. We weren't. We just weren't getting the results on the board.
It's going Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one indeed. Just to get through some more of these signings here, super chats. We've got quite a few before the end. Arsenal must sign Rice. Big up to all the platform currently 3 a.m. in Australia. Well, big up to you for watching this late, my friend. Thank you, Matthew. Tevin says now is not the time for meltdowns, but if Arsenal don't get this done and City get Rice, bump future targets. I'm not sure how much longer Arteta stays without getting his top targets. It's a fair point there, Tevin. Best team in Europe or the hope of Arsenal? Tough is what Gunadan says. I think you're underselling your club a little bit there, Gunadan. I really am. He also says here, also, I wasn't calling you out, Terry. I was just making a point on negotiating second, third, fourth, fine, but top picks, get it done. I understand. I think it's more about who else is in for them, mate. But yeah, I hear you there. I didn't take it as offense. You calling me out, bro, because again, I'm grown up. Don has challenged and disagreed with absolutely everything positive about Arsenal. It's hilarious, honestly, is what Tevin says here. It's kind of
almost
true.
like he's a Chelsea fan.
CeeLo here says Bhavs must have the best weed man in England.
I wasn't damned last week.
I know you were. I saw, mate. Look like a good trip, bro. Start 30 games for City, over 38 games for Arsenal, treble over 0, is what Gunadan says there. Thank you, bro. I think that even if Arsenal had a bid of 90 straight away, City would have matched the offer. I mean, that could be true as well. I mean, that's what I mean by there's almost an infinite amount of scenarios you could create. If Arsenal would have bid that and it was accepted, maybe City come straight in and bid the same as well. Yeah, absolutely right. There's no way of actually knowing. Rice is tricky. I'd see us playing a double pivot. Maybe it's getting the team ready for Arteta in 2 years, is what Thanos says there. All respect, Terry. Plus, I'm out of money. Listen, I appreciate all the donations all of you give, and all my viewers that don't donate, and my members and everybody. But just make sure you subscribe in, though, and you've got that bell notification turned on. We're willing to 100 million. We're willing to go to 100 million, and we can't match money-wise. Have sense respectfully, and we both know what project he's picking. Don't lie about that. This says Don equals Anthony Mackie. Oh, you do look a bit like Anthony Mackie. Yeah, you got little resemblance.
He's the guy from what's the movie? Marvel.
Oh,
movie,
Anthony Mackie. Oh my God.
Basically, the new Captain America.
Yeah, that's what
okay. I'll take that.
Yeah. Caicedo. By the way, if no one's watched that series, I'm sorry if I've ruined it for you. Caicedo is motivated by money, not the project. Oh, shots fired there from Tito. And if Arsenal turn to go after Caicedo, wouldn't he feel disrespected that they pulled out and prioritized Rice over him? Koundé did that with Chelsea.
Yeah, but it was about Chelsea and Agate. What's this about, man? Double standards.
But this is why players tell multiple players their number one priorities and tell them all they're interested in the media.
Exactly.
And some fans go, how can we be linked to 6 midfielders? Yeah, because your club tells them all they want to sign them, and then they pull out at the last minute. It's like when I was younger and playing the field. Every girl thought she was number one. Do you know what I mean? You didn't tell them she's my third or fourth choice. You just said, like, you're number one. And then in the end, you made a decision with which one you went with forever. And that didn't work out for me either, to be fair. But you know what I mean? It's the same principle. Boys, look, I want to thank all of you for coming on the show. My viewers, you're absolutely amazing as ever. So many likes as well. Let's get this past 2,000 likes as well. We're at about 1,500 now, which is great. Bhavs, Don, Mo, JJ, G, and of course Pete had to leave us to go and do a show of his own. I thank you all very much indeed. Oh, what's this story here? Man United have inquired for Declan Rice in recent days with the view of offering 40 million plus Harry Maguire and Elanga. However, they are viewed as outsiders. Yeah. And by the way, you all know my take. Inquiring is a bid. Let's just not act like it isn't. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them ones. If you go up to a girl and say, listen, can you find out if your mate would say yes to me going on a date? And the friend comes back and says, no, she wouldn't. You still got rejected. It doesn't make it a non-rejection. So remember that. There we go. Listen, everyone who's tuned in, thank you. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again.